Hey, what's up YouTube? OpTic here, bringing you another video, and today I am sick, but that's not going to stop me from giving you guys a video, and today I'm going to be doing a commentary video over some gameplay that I've recorded. It's nothing really too exciting in terms of the gameplay, just a pretty solid TDM match that I played. But what I'm going to be talking about is actually something that may or may not be a little bit controversial within Gears of War that we've been kind of seeing reverberating around the community lately, and that's the whole topic of contracts, especially contracts related to esports and organizations and stuff like that. The Gears of War community seems to be rather uneducated when it comes to contracts, and I believe I have a video on my YouTube channel where I talk maybe briefly about them, and I think it's been brought up in some of my Ask Ashes videos as well, but I've seen a lot of stuff in the Twitter universe, specifically in the Gears of War Twitter universe, and it's kind of been discussions on like how contracts should play out and, you know, what's right and what's wrong. And I've been asked the question on stream as well, you know, like what my opinions are on some of these things. So for those of you who don't know what specific situation I'm talking about, I'm not going to mention names directly, but there was recently a roster change that took place, and the contract that the player was under was held in question, and eventually the player was released, which is awesome to see that the org was taking care of their player despite the situation. That being said, it is an interesting situation. That's why I want to talk about it. So basically, when a player signs with an organization, they sign a contract, and usually these contracts aren't listing the player as an employee, because that would require typically some sort of insurance and other policies that organizations typically don't provide in esports, but they are signing as an independent contractor. Now, what this means is basically that they are signing over their skill set rather than themselves as a person, but it still allows the organization to, like, quote unquote own that player. So when you sign a contract, there are some key things that you have to look for. You know, you have to pay attention to the length of the contract, the terms of the contract in terms of what you are expected to provide for the organization, and make sure that you're actually comfortable with those expectations. For example, some organizations use copy and paste contracts which have some sort of, you must provide X amount of content or promotional material per week. And that's not really viable for certain players or certain positions. You know, you might not have the computer or the internet to stream or upload, yet technically if you don't, you're breaking the contract. So make sure that you pay attention to all the details of the contract and what you're expected to provide. So in return, make sure that you're being reciprocated appropriately by the organization. What this means is make sure that either your salary or your benefits from sponsors or whatever the case may be, whatever the org is doing for you makes sense and matches what you're providing for the organization. You don't want what you're giving to the organization to completely outvalue, you know, what they're doing for you, which is often a case with smaller organizations that maybe don't have the same amount of funding as the team needs, and the team might outgrow said organization. That's where contract length comes into play. You want to make sure that the length of the contract with the organization makes sense for how long and how you see your team growing. If you think your team is about to win some massive tournament and you guys are going to blow up overnight and become overnight celebrities, you don't want to be locked into a contract with a smaller org that can't provide you what you deserve. And you also don't want to be in a situation where you have to, you know, try to fight or screw over said organization who did try to help you, just because you kind of outgrown them through, you know, natural circumstances. So make sure that the deal is right for both ends of the party, and be honest with yourself and with the organization. Don't expect something that you don't deserve. Just because you think you're a top player or you're a top team, or you know what top players or top teams are making, doesn't mean that you necessarily deserve it because you killed them in a public match one time. It has to be realistic, right? It has to go based off your placements. Now, with the issue that happened in the community, I'm going to go on this really briefly. There's the whole topic of buyouts, right? And buyouts basically come in one of two forms. You either have a self buyout, which basically is a lower amount that allows you to buy yourself out of a contract. Say you're retiring or something like that, randomly, or something comes up and the organization doesn't really want to let you go, but it's something that you have to force. This is where you activate a self buyout and you pay a lesser amount to free yourself of the contract, and usually this self buyout activates a clause in the contract that says this player cannot compete under any other team for X amount of time, whether that be 6 months or 3 months or a year, whatever the case may be. So you've gotten yourself out of the contract, but you're not allowed to compete under any other contracts or organizations or teams that are going to be competitors. Then on the other side of that, there is the traditional buyout, which is basically if you are being sold, or your contract and your skills are being sold to another team or another organization. This buyout is going to be a little bit larger, and sometimes the buyout amount may seem way larger than what is reasonable, but that's kind of where the dilemma comes in. So I've worked on the organizational side before, and I'm going to go really quickly into some of the details that have to go into that buyout. First off, you have to recuperate as an organization whatever you've spent on this player, whether that be salaries or gear or jerseys or travel expenses, whatever the case may be. You're not trying to take a loss, because after all, this is a business. Following that, you have to identify values that you can't really put a number on, or are more difficult to put a number on, like social media following, how much you've increased their brand popularity, because if they are going to another org, they're taking that following with them and adding to that org's numbers. So if a player joins my organization at 200 followers, get up to 1,000 followers because of my promotion, and then go to another org, I've essentially given that other org 800 more followers, if that makes sense. So that has to be put into play, as well as whatever coaching has gone into it and what other staff and graphical stuff has been created for this player, stream overlays, all of that stuff technically has a value and has to be added up into that number for this org to recuperate. And then also some orgs will try to not just cut losses, but also try to make a profit. So that's why you might see some of these exuberant amounts in esports contracts. I hope all of this really makes sense to you guys. I know I'm not going into too much specific detail, but I feel like it's not really my business to talk about the events that have taken place in the community. And my job is to more help inform you guys about contracts as more and more organizations enter into Gears of War esports. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, please leave a thumbs up, if anything, just for the gameplay that I'm winning in the background. And make sure you click the subscribe button, and let me know in the comments down below what you guys think, or what your experience is with contracts, or what maybe some things that confuse you. When you are getting approached with contracts, please have somebody who is knowledgeable look over them for you. Don't assume that you know everything. People like to hide stuff in contracts, and I don't want to see anyone getting screwed over with that. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video.